What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back inside the UC Health Training Center for Monday's edition of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones, and the team was back at practice today here in Denver following their second preseason game this past Saturday. It was a tough one in Buffalo. The Broncos backups couldn't keep up with the Bills starters and fell 42-15. Head coach Nathaniel Hackett detailed what went wrong on Saturday and what his message to the team was.
I think first and foremost is an opportunity to learn from mistakes. I mean, that's what you have to get out of that. Otherwise, that whole game was a complete waste. So I think that just for them, understanding what we're trying to accomplish mentally in each rep is so important, and you want to get all that stuff out right now during the preseason, and hopefully we got a lot out during that game. One thing I'll tell you I liked that the offense kept battling. Defense finally got a couple stops there at the end, but in the end, that's not what we want to be about when it comes to physicality, across the board. I think everybody can be more physical, but it looked like they were thinking too much. There was too much on their minds, and there were just simple things that, when we come out here, I wish we would get some of those looks, and there were just some misalignments. And the starting point is always alignment and assignment. For defense, for offense, it's just hearing the call and knowing where to line up. And then execute. So those basic things, for whatever reason, didn't work. So we have to evaluate, all those guys. Those guys have to evaluate their process to get ready for that game, because we can't put that stuff on tape. That's not what we're about. Inside
linebacker Jewell also addressed the media today and discussed what the young guys can learn from Saturday's mistakes.
Yeah, you want to go out there and help and, get that one stick in there or that one drive stop and help them out. But this is part of the process, learning. Learning from your mistakes and going out there, and you got to get experience too for some of those young guys. So it's part of the process.
We saw the run game struggle again this past Saturday. The team rushed for 32 yards on 17 carries and averaged 1.9 yards per carry. But running back Jewell Williams isn't worried.
Really, just because I know the coaches keeping the plays simple. They don't want to show too much in the preseason, so I don't really too much worry about it.
Now moving on to this week, it is the final week of the preseason. So Coach Hackett said he's going to change the schedule a bit to mock what a game week would look like in the regular season.
So what we're going to do is we're going to change kind of how we go through this week, because I want them to feel kind of the regular rhythm during a regular week. So we'll have today's kind of a little bit of a bonus day, but we'll do a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, and a Saturday, just like we would during the regular week.
Plus, Coach Hackett announced that the current plan for Saturday's game will look the same as it did last weekend versus Buffalo. So no new starters will play in this final preseason game. And Jewell added that he isn't worried about getting no game reps this preseason. He's confident in the guys on this team and that they're making the most out of their reps at practice.
Just making sure we take these practice reps to heart. Since we're not doing tackling, make sure we're coming inside out on the ball and stuff like that, taking banana paths. And if you do it smart and you do it like a vet, I think you should be fine without tackling in practice. I think you should be able to take those, those good angles. As long as you do that, things will show on Monday night. But if you don't do that, then they'll pile up, and you won't find out till Monday. So just kind of being a vet and taking those small opportunities to get better.
The team is now just 3 weeks away from their season opener in Seattle. Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio is Broncos lead writer Delilah. Eric, appreciate you joining me on the show as always.
Yeah, last week of the preseason.
Yeah, I'm excited. The preseason is finally over. Ready to hit the regular season now.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, we heard earlier in the show Coach Hackett's frustrations from this game on Saturday, the lack of physicality mostly. But, Eric, I want to know, what were your main takeaways from the game on Saturday?
Yeah, we'll start there with the lack of physicality. I do want to say let's be careful about not equating a lack of physicality with a lack of effort, because I do think that, these are guys that are trying to make the team. Their jobs are on the line. It's not like it's Bradley Chubb out there or Justin Simmons, guys that know they're safe. These are guys that if they don't play well, they could get cut, right, either tomorrow or next week when we go all the way down to 53. And so I don't want to question anyone's effort. Sometimes I think it's just, maybe you're not, physically big enough to take on some of these guys, especially because the Broncos 2s were playing the Bills 1s, and then the Broncos 3s were playing the Bills 2s. And when you finally saw it even out was in the fourth quarter, when it was 3s versus 3s or 4s versus 4s, and you got a little bit of a more fair assessment, I thought. But yeah. I wanted to say that first, because there has been some talk about, these guys didn't try hard, they didn't play hard. Just because the score was the way it was doesn't mean they weren't trying hard. I don't think it's right to question these guys who are trying to keep a job. But Nathaniel Hackett's right. The physicality was not good enough. And we heard Josie Jewell talk about, hey, starters know how to prepare, veterans know how to prepare. When you're a younger guy and you're used to a college camp where you're tackling all the time and you're going live and you're hitting hard, I think it's easier to make that transition than it was maybe this week. And so we need to keep that in mind. They've got to step that up, obviously. The run game, which I know you've mentioned, that has to be better. But again, I'm not too concerned about some of the overall themes like 6 consecutive drives allowing a touchdown, or the run game not being very good, or being unable to score a touchdown until late in the game. Those things to me don't really matter because it's preseason. You're never going to see this group of guys on the field. You might see some of these guys, but they're not all going to be together. If you have one of these guys playing in the secondary, it's going to be with a Justin Simmons or a Pat Surtain. If you see one of these guys at linebacker playing in the starting lineup, it's going to be next to a Josie Jewell or whoever else it might be.
Absolutely.
And so an evaluation where you say, you're just never going to see 11 backups go against a starting offense or a starting defense. So I'm not too worried about that. It's worth noting that the Chargers backups just got blasted by the Cowboys backups, who a week ago the Broncos played really well against. So it's easy right now to think about, they didn't look good, they weren't physical enough, but we need to keep it in perspective because last year, as Nathaniel Hackett mentioned, Packers did not play well in the preseason. They go on, they're 13-3, they get the number 1 overall seed. They were in good shape.
I appreciate you saying that, Eric, because I think a lot of people are forgetting that this is the preseason and none of our starters were really out there. So thank you for making that point.
Yeah. It's hard. I get it because you want to see your team play well. And this is the first, the Bills are a good team. And so it's your first evaluation. But what you have to remember, the Broncos went 3-0 last year in the preseason and they looked great and it didn't really lead to anything. So
very fair.
I know it's hard. We haven't seen Russell Wilson. We want to see Russell Wilson play. We want to see the starters. We're not going to get that for a couple more weeks. It'll be okay.
Everything will be fine.
Yes.
There were some positives on Saturday, though. Brett Rippon came in, threw the ball really well. Coach Hackett also praised Albert Okwuegbunam, who played all 4 quarters on Saturday, which I think a lot of people might have been surprised by. So, Eric, what did you think about some of those guys' performances and kind of who did you see play really well on Saturday? Yeah,
I was impressed by Brett. I think he did a good job of closing the gap in that quarterback competition. He wasn't happy with how he played against Dallas, wasn't efficient enough, didn't complete enough passes. He was obviously better against the Bills, completed some deep shots down the field. I thought just looked a lot more comfortable. Obviously probably wishes he could have scored there on that 4th down at the end of the game, but I did think he took a step forward. That's the consistency you're looking for. I'll be interested to see, do they give him a chance to start this week against Minnesota, or does it stick with Josh Johnson? That'll give us a good indication of who's going to be the backup quarterback. Montrell Washington is another guy. I know we keep mentioning him, but he showed it on punt return. This week he showed it on kick return where he essentially had a guy on him, shook him off, and was able to go for 35 yards on a kick return, made a really tough catch on an offensive play, a long 3rd down. I think it was 17, 19 yards, something like that on the completion. But he took a hit and hung onto the ball. And for a long time, the question has been, hey, this guy's fast, he's shifty, but he's small. Can he take hits? And so far, what we've seen from him is that he's really tough as well.
He is, yeah. He'll take a hit and bounce right back up.
Yes,
it's impressive. Well, Eric, tomorrow there's another round of cuts. The roster sits currently at 84 players. They have to get it down to 80 by 2 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow. So was there anyone in this last preseason game that you thought really stood out that might have, improved their stock here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at that wide receiving room again and you say, okay, well, a guy like Jalen Virgil, did he do enough to kind of solidify making it past the next round of cuts? I think you look at, maybe the, where else? The outside linebacker room and say, okay, well, Jonathan Cooper got in there for the first time. He's not a guy that I would necessarily expect to be on the block this week, but he's a guy that was able to get out there and take a step forward, which is good.
Yeah.
Delarian Turner-Yell, I thought, came up and made some good plays in run support. Same thing. I thought J.R. Reed did a decent job as well. Those are 2 guys obviously battling for roster spots. So those are a few guys that I thought took a little bit of a step forward. And then, of course, Corliss Waitman, he had a chance to punt the entire game after Sam Martin got hurt. And so, if they liked what they saw from him, that probably only solidifies his chances of being on the roster.
Absolutely. Eric, I know you asked Coach Hackett today when the team will start to look ahead to Seattle. Him and Josie both said that, they don't want to start too early on the game planning. They might start to implement things as early as next week, maybe slowly but surely. How do you kind of like Coach Hackett's approach to it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was interesting. As he said, he didn't want it to get stale. He didn't want it to get boring. That to me speaks that it says that the game plan is this living, breathing thing that can change over time, and that he wants the players to be excited about. He wants them to be invested in. And if you give it to them too early, it might get a little dull. They might kind of, maybe they gloss over certain things. And so you want them to be sharp. I also think it makes a lot of sense to just get into a regular season mode and not do things too differently for Seattle than you will for Houston or San Francisco or so on down the line. It was interesting that he's already talked to Russell a little bit about what Russell wants to do in Seattle and how that game plan should shape up. That, to me, says that, and, I was able to talk with Nathaniel Hackett a few weeks ago for a story for our website, and he said that talking to Russell about the plan is going to be a big part of it. And so that's just further confirmation that Russell Wilson is going to be involved in this process. But yeah, they'll do a little bit next week. I like that. Just start to get it going because if you're a player too, you don't want to get bored with the game plan, but these guys are also, if you're a starter, you haven't played in 2 weeks, you're not going to play this week probably. Right. In your head, you're probably thinking, okay, well, we're about 20 days away or whatever it is from the regular season opener. Let's start getting ready. And so you give them a little taste, you give them a little bit here, start ratcheting it up for the opener.
Even Josie Jewell said he might have a couple conversations with Russell as they prepare.
Exactly. Yeah. See what he knows.
Exactly. Well, looking forward to it. Eric, appreciate your time.
Yeah, you got it.
Now it's time to take a look at today's injury report. Coach Hackett gave an update on a lot of guys in today's press conference. KJ Hamler participated in practice today. He will participate in some individual and team reps this week. And Hackett said that they're going to start incorporating him to see what he can do. And he could potentially play in the team's final preseason game as well. Michael Ojemudia did not practice today as he suffered an elbow injury in Saturday's game versus the Bills. He will be out for several weeks, but will not need surgery. Jonas Griffith, Netane Muti, Tyree Cleveland, and Billy Turner are all coming along well. And as for tight end Greg Dulcich, coach said that they're wanting to get him back out there, but don't want any setbacks, so trying to do it the right way with him. And Tom Compton remains on the PUP list, and he will start the season there, according to Coach Hackett. They are continuing to work on his back. Well, that'll do it for today's episode. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Broncos Now. I hope you'll meet me right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for another edition tomorrow evening. I'll see you all then.